Grigol Julukhidze. He's the director of the Foreign Policy Council and a regular contributor to TVP World. Welcome back, sir. Thank you for taking the time.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Pleasure as always. So let's start with Armenia and the situation now. Armenia's disappointed by the Russian peacekeeping force that was based in Nagorno-Karabakh, and they said that they basically didn't do their job, and they allowed the Azerbaijani military to enter and take over that enclave. Is that a fair representation of what happened?
Armenia has to pay and is paying the highest political price in return for their cooperation with Russia. We have been warning our Armenian colleagues and friends that the friendship with devil always brings terrible outcomes. And this is the bold illustration of this fact, because Armenia was abandoned by its strategic partner Russia in the most difficult situation. Of course, it is quite understandable why pro-Western political elite and the majority of Armenian society right now is trying to flee the Russian influence and somehow escape from the claws of the Kremlin. But of course, that's a very long way, and the chances to achieve success depend on many internal and external outcomes and processes. One of them is, of course, the current situation in Georgia, and I'm pretty sure we're going to talking about that issue a bit later.
Indeed we are. You talk about many influences, both internal and external, and you know, it brings to mind, of course, the Russian strategy of dis and misinformation and in influencing political policy within countries, including elections. So you know, we expect that certainly in Armenia, but it is something that we've seen in Georgia already with the Foreign Agents Bill. Now, the bill says that any organization which has more than 20% foreign funding must be registered as a foreign agent. Why has this caused so much discomfort amongst the Georgian people?
Because the stakes are much higher than the simple and ordinary law, even draconian one. This law is harshly criticized by the most competent European legislative body, I mean the Venice Commission, the closest partners of Georgia, including the United States of America, the United Kingdom, the European Union, etc., etc. Apart from that, the most important and alarming issue is the intention of the Georgian government to distance this Eastern European country from the European Union, because once this law starts to function in daily life, the distance between Tbilisi and Brussels will be, let's say, becoming even more distant, and I would say extremely blurry. What I mean, this is the law that in fact changes the foreign political orientation of this country, and it was openly declared by the informal ruler of the ruling party Georgian Dream, Mr. Bidzina Ivanishvili, on April 29, who said that the West and the so-called global war party is trying to drag Georgia into the war, and such kind of conspiracy theories based on nonsense and frankly speaking, nothing oriented to the less developed part of the Georgian society, and which is the repetition of the narratives from the Kremlin playbook, brings this country away from the Western orientation. And Georgians understand that quite well, because I remind you that 82% of the Georgian society declared their support and intention to do everything to become the European Union member state. And apart from that, I remind you that there's a chapter in Georgian constitution which says that any government in Georgia has to do everything in order to bring Tbilisi closer to the European and Euro-Atlantic organizations. And this law, of course, brings this country away and violates this constitutional chapter. This is why more than 200,000 Georgians gathered in the Tbilisi streets, and not only.
Right. Okay, understood. But surely all that the Georgian people have to do is vote Georgian Dream out of power at the next election. And they're not far away. So what's the problem?
The problem is that we have no guarantee that the elections will be democratic, because we're talking about the country which is not as strong democratically as the Western states. Because unfortunately, the democracy index is not as strong as we would like to have. And in addition, the government does not show any sign of the readiness to conduct fair and democratic parliamentary elections. And this is the main concern. This is the main concern and the main difference from the European elections. That's why a lot of Western observers are astonished that why do you protest, and why are you so excited, and why are you so angry, and why you do not trust the government. The problem is that the ruling team has no sign and intention, shows no sign and intention to conduct fair parliamentary elections. And it will be the biggest challenge of the opposition, first of all, to mobilize the number of voters. And from this point of view, the discontent is dynamically growing in Georgia against the government. And another issue might be the ability to protect the votes, because we do not speak about the strong democracy. We talk about Georgia, which is trying to flee the Russian influence.
Understood. So certainly it seems that at ground level, there is a commonality in the way that the people think about Russian influence, both in Armenia and in Georgia. Do you see more of this anti-Russian sentiment in the region over time?
Of course, it's growing, especially since the full-scale aggression against Ukraine. But in case of Georgia, the regional political stakes are much higher than we think. For example, if Georgia is cut from the Western satellites and orientations, even minimal chances of Armenia will be decreased. And apart from that, the Russian Federation will have direct access to the only alternative route in order to transport energy resources from the Central Asian region. Apart from that, if Georgia is cut from the Western orientation, it will become the dangerous precedent how the candidate state country, changes the foreign policy orientation. And of course, another issue is the stronger ability of the Kremlin and Putin to control the region and somehow grow its influence in the Black Sea basin, which has a strategic importance and meaning for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which had been declared a couple of years ago that this sea has a strategic importance, economic, military, and political points of view.
Understood. So actually, from what you say, it's shaping up to be a far bigger issue than purely Georgia and Armenia. themselves, it is also, in terms of geostrategy, critically important because NATO's interests are now being threatened. But let's talk about NATO for a second. I mean, Georgia has made no secret of the fact that it wants to apply for NATO membership, but surely that's out of the question. I mean, two parts of the country have been occupied by Russia for many years now. And under NATO rules, a country in that situation cannot be accepted. Is that true?
Georgia used to be one of the fast developing aspirant countries when it comes to the integration into the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. But since the full-scale aggression of Moscow against Ukraine, this attitude has been changed, and we see no signals or tangible effects of this aspiration. In addition, the Georgian government avoids any kind of declarations about its readiness to become the NATO member. This is most likely oriented to Mr. Putin, and they try not to irritate Moscow with such kind of aspirations and declarations. Are such kind of decisions and statements effective? Of course, no, because we see no intention of Moscow to seize something, make compromises, and the bold illustration of this fact is the declaration of the special representative of the president of the Russian Federation, Grigol Julukhidze, who said that the restoration of the territorial integrity of Georgia is impossible, and only such kind of dreams can be considered, these dreams can be considered as surrealistic from this point of view. That's why I do not see any tangible results in this cooperation and any chance to see Georgia under the government of the Georgian dream somehow closer to the NATO. And that's why the topic, I would say, is temporarily closed.
Right. Well, let's see what happens in the near future, and we look forward to developments on that front. As always, thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Julukhidze, for your insights. Have a good day, sir.
Thank you so much.